Before demons rebelled, before Satan became a symbol of evil, there was Samael, an angel who never fell, yet was feared more than any fallen one. Known as the poison of God, Samael is the angel of death, the heavenly accuser, and the executioner of divine justice. He does not tempt. He does not lie. He arrives only when the balance must be restored. Ancient texts whisper his name with dread, describing a being who serves God by bringing endings, consequences, and truth without mercy. Tonight, we uncover the angel whose purpose is terror, and why the world still needs him. Thank you for watching, and welcome to the darker side of sacred history. The name that burns. In the ancient world, a name was never just a sound. It was essence, authority, and destiny woven in 2 syllables. To know a name, especially a divine one, was to touch power. This is why the name Samael was spoken rarely, and often only in whispers. It was believed to burn the tongue, not because it was evil, but because it carried unbearable weight. The name Samael is most commonly translated from Hebrew as poison of God or blindness of God. Both meanings are unsettling. Poison implies harm, corruption, and death. Blindness suggests obscurity, hiddenness, and a removal of sight. Together, they form a paradox. How could anything associated with God be poisonous or blinding? The answer lies at the heart of ancient theology. God is not only mercy and creation, but also judgment and destruction. Samael embodies that uncomfortable truth. Unlike angels of healing, wisdom, or protection, Samael's existence forces humanity to confront the darker half of divine order. He is not an accident. He is not a rebel. He is created deliberately, assigned deliberately, and feared deliberately. His name burns because it exposes a side of reality humans would rather deny, that endings are as sacred as beginnings. Early Jewish texts place Samael among the highest ranks of angels, not the lowest. He is not a wandering spirit or a corrupted being. He walks close to the throne of God, operating within the system of divine justice. This proximity makes him more terrifying than any fallen angel. A rebel can be opposed. A servant of divine law cannot. Storytellers imagined Samael as a figure of overwhelming presence, radiant and dreadful at once. His light is not comforting. It reveals too much. To stand before him is to feel exposed, stripped of excuses and illusions. Where other angels deliver messages, Samael delivers outcomes. The burning nature of his name reflects this role. Fire, in ancient symbolism, is both purifying and destructive. It refines gold and consumes flesh. Samael's name burns because it purifies through destruction. It removes what cannot endure. In some traditions, Samael is described as the angel who sees humanity clearly, without sentiment. Where humans plead, rationalize, and hope for exceptions, Samael records, observes, waits. His gaze is said to be unbearable not because it is cruel, but because it is honest. There is no hiding in that light. This honesty is what transforms Samael into a figure of dread. Ancient cultures feared chaos, but they feared inevitable justice even more. Chaos could be escaped. Law could not. Samael represents the moment when consequences arrive, not with rage, but with certainty. The burning name also reflects the fear of invocation. Many believed that to speak Samael's name carelessly was to invite his attention. Unlike angels of blessing, Samael was not summoned for protection or guidance. His presence marked transition, often final transition. Life to death. Innocence to accountability. Action to consequence. Yet, despite the fear, Samael was not erased from sacred tradition. He was preserved, studied, debated. This alone reveals something profound. Ancient thinkers understood that a universe without Samael would be incomplete. Mercy without justice becomes indulgence. Compassion without consequence becomes chaos. In rabbinic thought, Samael exists because humanity requires boundaries. Free will without accountability would unravel creation. Samael stands as that boundary, unmoving and incorruptible. Some stories describe Samael as burdened rather than malicious. While angels of mercy rejoice in forgiveness, Samael carries the weight of endings. He performs the tasks others cannot. This has led some mystics to describe him not as hateful, but sorrowful, an angel condemned to be feared so that the world can remain ordered. The burning of his name, then, is not just fear, it is recognition. Recognition that life is fragile. That time is finite. That choices matter. In later interpretations, Samael becomes increasingly associated with accusation and death, but his earliest identity remains consistent. He is a necessary terror, a guardian of balance. He is the shadow cast by divine light. Remove the light, and the shadow disappears, but so does order. It is no accident that Samael's name survives thousands of years of theological debate. Names without purpose fade. This one endured because it speaks to something universal and inescapable. Every culture, every belief system, every human life eventually encounters what Samael represents, the moment when truth can no longer be delayed. The name burns because it reminds us that morality is not theoretical. It is lived. And one day, accounted for. In the chapters that follow, Samael will step out of the shadows of his name and into his roles, as angel of death, accuser, and keeper of divine poison. But it all begins here, with a name too heavy to forget, and too powerful to silence. The angel of death. Death, in the ancient world, was not an accident of biology. It was an event. A visitation. A moment when the invisible crossed into the visible, when the machinery of heaven reached down and touched flesh. And at the center of this moment stood Samael. Unlike later portrayals of death as a cloaked skeleton or mindless reaper, Samael was imagined as an angel of terrifying intelligence and authority. He was not summoned by grief or chaos, but by order. When a life reached its final measure, Samael was dispatched, not out of cruelty, but necessity. Rabbinic literature describes Samael as the official angel of death, a role distinct from demons or destructive spirits. He did not roam freely, hunting souls. He waited for command. His presence marked the end of time allotted to a person, a final punctuation placed upon a human story written by choice, chance, and consequence. One of the most enduring images of Samael is that of the drawn sword. This was no ordinary weapon. The blade shimmered with a substance more feared than steel, divine poison. A single drop was said to end life instantly. Not through violence, but separation. Flesh remained intact, yet the soul slipped free, as effortlessly as breath leaving the lungs. The poison mattered because death itself was not considered violent. In ancient theology, the soul was never destroyed. It was released. Samael's poison dissolved the invisible bond that held body and spirit together. What followed was not annihilation, but passage. Stories tell of Samael standing at the foot of a dying person's bed, unseen by all except, sometimes, the dying themselves. In those final moments, some were said to glimpse a figure, tall, silent, wings folded like a burial shroud. Others felt only a sudden calm, an overwhelming stillness. Fear did not always follow. Recognition did. In some traditions, the righteous recognized Samael immediately and did not resist him. They understood that his arrival meant their trial was complete. Their lives had been weighed. Their time had been fulfilled. For the wicked, however, Samael's presence inspired terror, not because he harmed them, but because he knew them. Every lie, every cruelty, every unrepented act was already recorded. One chilling legend claims that Samael did not speak at the moment of death. Words were unnecessary. His silence was judgment enough. Yet Samael's authority was not absolute. Ancient texts repeatedly emphasize that he could not take a soul without permission. He was bound by divine law as tightly as humanity was bound by mortality. In fact, some stories portray Samael arguing before the heavenly court, demanding the right to take a life, only to be denied when repentance or mercy intervened. This limitation is crucial. It separates Samael from later demonic figures who act in rebellion. Samael is terrifying precisely because he is obedient. He does not kill out of anger or desire. He kills because the order of creation demands it. In some narratives, Samael is even tricked or delayed by righteous individuals. Prophets, sages, and saints are said to have resisted him, not with force, but with wisdom. They bargained, debated, or cited divine promises. These stories reinforced a powerful message: death is inevitable, but not always immediate. One tale recounts Samael arriving to claim the soul of a great scholar. The scholar asked to see Samael's sword. When Samael revealed it, the scholar leapt and seized the blade, preventing his own death. God ultimately intervened, returning the sword to Samael, but allowing the scholar more time to live. Even the angel of death, it seemed, could be outwitted. These stories were not meant to mock Samael, but to emphasize the value of life and righteousness. Death was not arbitrary. It responded to spiritual weight. Over time, Samael's image grew darker. As cultural fear of death deepened, so did the terror associated with its messenger. Samael began to be depicted as grotesque or monstrous in some folklore, his once angelic form twisted by human imagination. But beneath these distortions, the core idea remained unchanged: Samael ended lives because endings were necessary. Mystics taught that without death, creation would collapse under its own excess. Life without limit would become meaningless. Samael ensured renewal by clearing the stage, making room for future generations. In this sense, he was not an enemy of life, but its grim caretaker. Some Kabbalistic texts even describe Samael as grieving his role. He alone among the angels was forced to witness humanity's suffering at its most intimate moments. He watched children cry, lovers part, empires fade. Where other angels sang praises, Samael bore witness to endings. And still, he did not refuse his duty. The angel of death was never meant to be loved. He was meant to be respected. Samael's presence in myth forces a difficult truth upon the listener: death is not a punishment for being human. It is the cost of being part of a universe governed by order rather than chaos. Samael did not invent mortality. He enforced it. In the quiet space between heartbeats, in the final breath drawn, in the stillness that follows, Samael stands unseen, sword lowered, task completed. Not in triumph. Not in hatred. Samael the Accuser. In the ancient imagination of the Near East, the universe was not governed by chaos or whim, but by order, rigid, deliberate, and inescapable. Every action produced a consequence, every moral choice left a record. Within this cosmic system stood Samael, not as a rebel or corrupter, but as the accuser, the one who ensured that nothing went unnoticed. To modern ears, the word accuser sounds malicious, even cruel. Yet in early Jewish thought, accusation was not evil, it was legal. Courts required prosecutors. Justice demanded witnesses. Samael filled that role in the heavenly tribunal, acting as the voice that spoke uncomfortable truths in the presence of divine authority. The meaning of accusation. The Hebrew term often associated with Samael's function is ha-Satan, meaning the adversary or the one who opposes. This was not originally a proper name, but a title, a role within a judicial process. Samael's opposition was not rebellion against God, but resistance to unexamined mercy. He stood against forgiveness that ignored responsibility. In ancient storytelling, Samael does not invent crimes. He exposes them. He does not manipulate humans into sin, nor does he delight in their failures. His task is far more chilling: to present humanity exactly as it is, stripped of excuses, justifications, and self-deception. This makes him terrifying. Humans can plead with gods of mercy, negotiate with spirits of chaos, or deceive demons with clever words. But Samael cannot be bargained with. He speaks only what has already been done. The heavenly court. Rabbinic literature often imagines heaven as a courtroom. God sits as judge, angels serve as witnesses, and the book of deeds lies open. In this setting, Samael steps forward as prosecutor. He recites actions, intentions, and consequences with absolute precision. Some traditions describe Samael traveling the world, observing humanity in silence. He records moments of cruelty no one saw, broken vows spoken in secret, and selfish acts disguised as virtue. When the time comes, he brings these records before the divine throne. Storytellers emphasize that Samael does not shout or rage. His power lies in calm certainty. Every accusation is supported by truth. Every charge is accurate. This quiet inevitability is what makes him so feared. Samael and humanity. Unlike later depictions of Satan as a tempter, Samael rarely interferes directly in human behavior. He allows free will to operate fully. Humans are given every chance to choose differently. Only after choices are made does Samael act. In some legends, righteous individuals encounter Samael not as an enemy, but as a tester. He questions their intentions, examines their motives, and challenges their self-image. Those who pass are left unharmed. Those who fail face consequences, not from Samael's cruelty, but from their own moral weight. This transforms Samael into a mirror rather than a monster. To face him is to see oneself without illusion. The accuser in sacred narratives. While Samael's name is not always explicit, his function appears throughout sacred texts. In the Book of Job, the adversary challenges human righteousness, questioning whether faith exists without reward. This figure does not deny God's authority, he operates under it. Many scholars associate this role with Samael, seeing him as the voice that demands proof rather than assumption. Is humanity good by nature, or only when rewarded? Samael asks the question no one else dares to ask. In storytelling traditions, this moment defines him. He is not humanity's enemy, he is humanity's examiner. Accusation as balance. Why would a benevolent universe require an accuser? Mystical traditions answer with balance. Mercy without justice becomes indulgence. Forgiveness without accountability erodes moral structure. Samael exists to prevent divine compassion from dissolving into chaos. Kabbalistic teachings place Samael on the left side of divine emanation, the side of severity. This position does not make him evil, it makes him necessary. He applies pressure where others offer comfort. He draws lines where others erase them. In this way, Samael protects the integrity of the cosmos, even as he frightens those who benefit from its mercy. Fear of the accuser. Human fear of Samael reveals something deeper, fear of being known. Samael does not punish ignorance. He punishes denial. His accusations strike hardest when humans refuse to acknowledge their own flaws. Stories tell of souls trembling not because Samael speaks lies, but because he speaks truths they avoided their entire lives. He reveals not only actions, but intentions, why something was done, not just that it was done. This makes Samael more dangerous than any demon of chaos. Chaos destroys blindly. Samael destroys selectively, guided by law. The silence after judgment. Once accusation is complete, Samael steps back. He does not deliver the final verdict. He does not celebrate punishment. His role ends when truth is spoken. Judgment belongs to God alone. This restraint defines Samael's character. He is not a tyrant, nor a usurper. He knows his place, and never exceeds it. In a universe filled with rebellion, Samael's obedience is absolute, even when his task makes him hated. Poison, venom, and spiritual corruption. Poison is one of humanity's oldest fears. Long before laboratories and antidotes, poison represented death that could not be fought, silent, invisible, and already inside you before you knew it was there. Ancient cultures understood poison not merely as a substance, but as a metaphor for corruption itself. It is no accident that Samael, the angel of death, is forever linked to venom. His poison does not simply end life, it reveals what has already decayed. In early Jewish mystical thought, poison symbolized a breach in divine order. Unlike violence, which is loud and immediate, poison works slowly, patiently. It transforms the inside while leaving the outside unchanged. This made it the perfect image for spiritual corruption, sin that grows unnoticed until collapse becomes inevitable. Samael's poison, then, is not random punishment. It is consequence made visible. Rabbinic legend describes Samael carrying a sword whose blade drips with venom. This poison is not poured onto the world freely. It is released only at the moment of death, a final agent that separates soul from flesh. The venom does not kill the body alone, it dissolves the invisible thread binding spirit to matter. Death, in this tradition, is not a violent tearing, but a chemical reaction of the soul, triggered by divine decree. Yet Samael's connection to poison extends far beyond physical death. Mystical texts suggest he governs spiritual toxins, forces that weaken the soul long before the body fails. Arrogance, despair, cruelty, obsession with power, these are the venoms that corrode human beings from within. Samael does not inject these poisons, humanity produces them. He merely ensures they reach their conclusion. This idea reshapes Samael from executioner into custodian of decay. He does not hunt the innocent. He watches patterns unfold. When corruption reaches a critical point, Samael appears, not to cause the fall, but to finalize it. In this way, he is less an angel of death and more an angel of irreversibility. Ancient storytellers often portrayed poison as truth without mercy. Once swallowed, it cannot be argued with, negotiated, or undone. Samael embodies this brutal honesty. When he arrives, illusion collapses. Self-deception dies first. The soul is forced to confront what it has become. Some mystical traditions describe Samael as the ruler of spiritual entropy, the slow unraveling of order when discipline, humility, and wisdom are abandoned. Entropy is not evil, it is natural. But unchecked, it consumes all structure. Samael exists to draw a boundary, to declare, this decay ends here. In Kabbalistic symbolism, poison is associated with the left side, the realm of severity and judgment. This side is feared because it withholds comfort. Mercy explains away failure, severity exposes it. Samael's venom strips away excuses, leaving only truth. It is not the poison that destroys, it is the revelation. One haunting legend claims that at the moment of death, Samael offers the soul a final vision, not of heaven or hell, but of its own life, seen without justification. Every kindness, every cruelty, every neglected responsibility appears with unbearable clarity. The poison ensures the soul cannot turn away. This is spiritual death before physical death, a reckoning that cannot be escaped. In this sense, Samael's poison functions as a cosmic solvent. It dissolves false identities, self-crafted myths, and comforting lies. What remains is the essential self, stripped, exposed, and weighed. This concept terrified ancient audiences more than eternal punishment. Hell could be endured, truth could not. To be seen completely, without defense, was the ultimate fear. Samael became the figure who enforced this exposure. There are also darker interpretations. Some traditions claim Samael's poison seeps into the world through human actions, systems built on cruelty, power gained through deception, societies sustained by exploitation. These collective poisons do not kill immediately. They accumulate. When they reach a tipping point, collapse follows. Samael's role is not to prevent the collapse, but to seal it. Here, Samael becomes a figure of historical judgment. Empires fall not because Samael strikes them down, but because their internal poison has already hollowed them out. His presence simply marks the end. This interpretation casts Samael as an angel of limits. He enforces the truth that nothing corrupted can last forever. Not bodies. Not souls. Not civilizations. And yet, paradoxically, poison also purifies. In controlled doses, toxins become medicine. Ancient alchemists believed venom could heal if transformed. Samael, in some mystical readings, holds this dual role. His poison destroys, but it also cleanses. Death makes space for renewal. Endings allow beginnings. This is perhaps the most unsettling aspect of Samael's mythology. He is not opposed to life. He is opposed to stagnation. Where corruption refuses to change, poison becomes inevitable. By linking Samael to venom, ancient thinkers expressed a terrifying truth, that destruction is not always an act of malice. Sometimes it is the final stage of neglect. Samael does not whisper temptation. He does not seduce the righteous or trap the innocent. He waits. He watches decay progress. And when the poison has already done its work, he arrives, not as a murderer, but as a witness. Samael and Lilith. In the tangled web of Jewish mysticism, few figures are as enigmatic, or as feared, as Samael and Lilith. Individually, they are terrifying forces: Samael, the angel of death and divine poison, and Lilith, the first woman who defied Adam, a symbol of unrestrained independence and shadowed desire. Together, they form one of the most unsettling partnerships in mystical tradition, a pairing that embodies the tension between law and rebellion, consequence and freedom, order and chaos. The story of Lilith begins long before Samael enters the narrative. According to ancient Jewish folklore, Lilith was the first woman, created alongside Adam from the same clay, equal in form, spirit, and will. Unlike Eve, Lilith refused to submit. She would not lie beneath Adam, unwilling to be dominated in the sacred act of union. When Adam demanded obedience, Lilith invoked the divine name and left Eden of her own volition, flying into the wilderness to join the ranks of demons and spirits, becoming a figure both feared and misunderstood. Lilith's rebellion marks her as an archetype, the embodiment of unrestrained will. She represents a challenge to divine order, not by direct malice, but by refusal to conform. And this is where Samael enters. Samael, by contrast, is the ultimate enforcer of divine order. He is the left hand of God, carrying out what is necessary, no matter how terrifying. He does not rebel, but neither does he act with malice beyond duty. In mystical writings, he is sometimes called the poison of God, because he delivers the consequences of imbalance, the venom of truth, the inevitability of justice. The link between Samael and Lilith is both symbolic and narrative. Mystical texts, particularly the Kabbalistic Zohar, describe them as partners in the cosmic shadow, ruling over forces that defy ordinary human understanding. In this pairing, Samael is severity incarnate, while Lilith embodies rebellion incarnate. They are two sides of the same coin, where Lilith represents freedom without restraint, Samael enforces restraint without mercy. Together, they form a dark mirror to the human experience, an eternal lesson about power, consequence, and the limits of will. One legend depicts their union not as romantic, but functional. Samael, having been commanded to execute divine judgment, finds a counterpart in Lilith, whose energies align with chaos, desire, and temptation. In one mystical text, Lilith approaches Samael in the wilderness, and together they produce a lineage of night spirits, beings that personify spiritual imbalance, moral corruption, and the hidden fears of humanity. These offspring are not inherently evil, they are reflections of unbridled human impulses and divine consequence made manifest. Samael enforces law, Lilith embodies the chaos that tests it. In this way, their partnership is less about domination and more about balance, albeit a dark and unsettling one. The symbolism of their union runs even deeper in Kabbalistic thought. Samael occupies the left pillar of Gevurah, the side of judgment and severity, in the tree of life. Lilith, by contrast, exists as an energy outside the tree, representing forces that challenge structure itself. Their interaction illustrates a cosmic truth: severity must confront freedom to maintain balance. Without Lilith, Samael's justice could become arbitrary. Without Samael, Lilith's freedom could collapse into anarchy. They are entwined, one feeding the other, like poison and antidote in the hidden veins of creation. Humanity's fear of their union is rooted in the uncanny nature of balance through extremes. Samael and Lilith are terrifying because they embody what humans cannot easily comprehend, that law can be as cruel as freedom is dangerous, and that consequence is inevitable, whether one embraces it or flees. In medieval and later mystical texts, their union is sometimes depicted in shadowy, almost grotesque imagery, Samael with wings of black flame, Lilith with flowing hair that twists like serpents, standing together in a barren, twilight wilderness. This imagery is symbolic, representing the collision of divine order with unrestrained will, a universe in which choices always carry weight, and rebellion always provokes consequence. Samael in Mysticism and Kabbalah. To understand Samael is to step into the labyrinth of Jewish mysticism, where angels are not merely messengers but forces that shape the very structure of existence. By the time Kabbalists began mapping the heavens, Samael had assumed a role both terrifying and essential. He became the personification of severity, the left hand of God, and a force whose presence maintained the delicate balance between mercy and judgment. Unlike the clear-cut duality of good and evil in popular imagination, Kabbalah presents a universe where darkness has purpose, and Samael embodies that necessary shadow. The left hand of God. In the mystical framework of Kabbalah, the tree of life organizes divine attributes, or sephiro, into 10 interconnected emanations. These sephiro are not static, they pulse with energy, creating, sustaining, and occasionally judging creation. At the right hand of the tree sits chaste, the sephira of mercy, love, and boundless generosity. Directly opposite is Gevura, the sephira of severity, discipline, and restriction. Here, in the pillar of Gevura, we find Samael's domain. Samael is not a fallen angel in this view, but the enforcer of divine limits. His severity is not cruelty, it is structure. Without the left hand, mercy would flood unchecked, allowing chaos to flourish. Without Samael's presence, justice could never be measured, and consequences would lose meaning. In essence, he is the shadow cast by divine light, a reminder that boundaries are the price of existence. Mystics describe Samael's energy as both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Imagine a force that can sweep away illusions of control, revealing the underlying structure of reality. His task is not optional, he cannot turn away. When humans ignore law, indulge hubris, or stray too far from the path of balance, Samael's hand moves, unseen yet inevitable. Samael and the Cliffhof. Where there is light, there is shadow. In Kabbalistic cosmology, the tree of life is mirrored by the Cliffhof, the shells or husks that contain the darker energies of creation. The Cliffhof represents what happens when divine forces are distorted, misused, or rejected. Samael is associated with these dark shells, often identified with the Clypha called Gamchikoth, the shell of severity turned inward. Here, Samael is no longer just a cosmic enforcer, he embodies the dangers of unchecked judgment. The Kabbalists warn that engaging with these energies without wisdom leads to spiritual ruin, for Samael's reflection can appear seductive. In the Cliffhof, his justice becomes a mirror of human flaws, turning severity into punishment rather than balance. Yet even here, there is a lesson. The darkness is not evil in itself, it is the consequence of imbalance. Mystics often describe encounters with Samael in symbolic terms. To confront him is to confront one's own failings. His presence is described as a chilling wind, a void filled with divine truth, revealing hidden fears and unacknowledged weaknesses. Only those with insight, courage, and humility can withstand such visions. Samael as accuser and judge. In Kabbalistic literature, Samael retains his dual role as the angel of death and the heavenly accuser. Death and judgment are intertwined, every ending is a consequence, and every consequence is a lesson. Some texts depict Samael holding scales, weighing the moral weight of human actions. He is impartial, guided not by personal malice but by the cosmic law of balance. This impartiality is key. In a world of angels, many serve to nurture, protect, or inspire. Samael's function is not to nurture but to remind. He is the reflection of law itself, the certainty of endings, the inevitability of consequence. Stories tell of Samael visiting the righteous and the wicked alike, though his approach differs. For the wicked, he is immediate and direct, a sword or a poison. For the righteous, his presence is subtle, a warning or a whisper of accountability, a shadow teaching that even virtue carries responsibility. Samael and spiritual transformation. Kabbalists do not view Samael's severity as purely destructive. Transformation, they argue, requires tension. Just as the body grows stronger under resistance, the soul matures under the weight of consequence. Samael represents the trials that force introspection, moral reckoning, and spiritual awakening. His trials are harsh because growth is never gentle. Some texts describe the process metaphorically. The soul, like molten metal, must be tempered by fire and pressure. Samael provides the fire, the catalyst that shapes, strengthens, and clarifies. Without such trials, the soul risks stagnation, falling into complacency or hubris. The angel of death and poison becomes, paradoxically, a teacher of life. Samael and the divine balance. The Kabbalist's fascination with balance elevates Samael from mythic terror to essential principle. The universe cannot function on mercy alone, nor can it survive through severity alone. Every act of creation is paired with restraint, every gift of life, with accountability. Samael's existence ensures that this cosmic balance remains intact. In meditation and mystical practice, some Kabbalists envision Samael as a focus for understanding limits, both divine and human. By contemplating his role, one could learn humility, responsibility, and the consequences of moral choices. He is not merely feared, he is respected. To ignore him is to court disaster, for the laws he enforces are inexorable, universal, and impartial. Samael in the human imagination. Even outside mystical circles, Samael's Kabbalistic role influenced folklore, literature, and art. He inspired depictions of grim reapers, avenging angels, and other figures who combine awe, fear, and moral weight. Artists captured the duality of his nature, terrifying yet majestic, destructive yet purposeful. Writers and storytellers often explored the tension of confronting a being who is both divine and dreadful, a reminder that true justice can be as terrifying as it is necessary. In the Samael story in Mysticism and Kabbalah is not one of evil versus good, but of balance versus imbalance. He embodies the consequences we fear yet cannot escape, the severity that tests us, and the necessary terror that preserves the cosmos. To understand Samael is to understand that life, death, and morality are intertwined in ways that are often uncomfortable, but profoundly essential. The necessary terror. To understand Samael is to confront a paradox. He is terrifying, yes, but not evil. He is relentless, yes, but not arbitrary. He is the angel whose very existence forces humanity to face the weight of consequence, the inevitability of death, and the uncompromising clarity of truth. In the eyes of many ancient mystics, Samael's terror is not punishment, it is necessary. Without him, mercy would lose its meaning, life its balance, and cosmic law its authority. In Jewish mystical thought, particularly within the Kabbalistic framework, Samael occupies the left hand of God, the side of severity, known as Gevurah. If the right hand, chaste, mercy, represents divine kindness and unearned grace, the left hand is the counterbalance, discipline, justice, and consequence. Samael is the living embodiment of this principle. Where mercy softens the blows of existence, Samael delivers the consequences that must come, ensuring that creation does not spiral into chaos. The world, the text suggests, cannot exist on love and mercy alone. Justice requires someone who will uphold boundaries, even when they sting, even when they terrify. Legends describe him as an ever-watchful figure, standing at the threshold of life and death. Unlike human executioners, he does not question or waver. He does not act out of anger or spite. His is a cosmic duty, one entrusted to no other being. Stories from rabbinic texts and mystical commentaries portray Samael waiting silently at the edge of mortal existence. One such tale tells of a man who lived a long and prosperous life yet cheated, lied, and harmed others. On his final night, Samael appeared, not with a roar or flame, but with a quiet inevitability. The man begged for mercy, offering wealth, pleading for delay. Samael did not speak. He did not yield. And when the appointed hour came, the man's soul was severed from his body, leaving nothing but the echo of choices made. In this way, Samael is impartial. He does not fear nor favor, he simply fulfills his role. Samael's association with poison further amplifies this terror. Ancient mystics did not see poison as merely a physical substance but as a symbol of spiritual decay. A drop could end a life, but it could also signify the consequences of moral corruption, the quiet unraveling of character over time. Samael's poison is the natural result of choices, magnified and delivered with cosmic precision. Human beings sow the seeds of their own downfall, and Samael ensures that the harvest is reaped. In this, he is less a malevolent figure and more a mirror of inevitability. Look closely at him, and one sees not hatred, but clarity, a truth humanity often refuses to acknowledge. Throughout history, Samael's terror has been amplified by his association with Lilith, the legendary first wife of Adam. In mystical writings, Samael and Lilith form a kind of dark mirror to Adam and Eve, law and rebellion entwined. Lilith embodies desire, independence, and the defiance of natural order, while Samael embodies the strict enforcement of divine law. Together, they represent forces humanity struggles to reconcile: freedom versus consequence, impulse versus responsibility. Tales of their union do not depict lustful romance but a cosmic inevitability. Law must confront rebellion, and rebellion must confront law. Samael's presence in these stories reminds humanity that for every unchecked impulse, there is a reckoning. Samael's role as the angel of death further cements his place as a necessary terror. Death is often feared because it is unknown, yet in mystical traditions, death serves a function. It is the final measure of justice, the ultimate equalizer. No one escapes, not kings, not prophets, not the pious. Samael delivers death not as punishment for arbitrary reasons, but as a fulfillment of the divine order. In one legend, the great sage Rabbi Ishmael encountered Samael in a vision. The angel explained that the moment of death is not to be mourned with terror but understood as a transition, the necessary conclusion to a life defined by choices. Yet even as he spoke of duty, his presence inspired awe and dread, for the sage glimpsed the weight of responsibility Samael carries, the burden of enforcing laws that even gods cannot ignore. Stories also speak of Samael as the accuser, presenting the deeds of humanity before God. His accusations are not false, they are reflections of reality, unvarnished and absolute. In this role, Samael ensures that justice is seen and enacted. Unlike later depictions of Satan as a tempter, Samael's accusations do not manipulate, they reveal. He uncovers the consequences of actions, the poison that humans have already introduced into their own lives. It is a terrifying duty because it allows no escape, no softening. It is necessary, yet it strikes fear into the hearts of mortals. The terror Samael inspires is, paradoxically, a source of guidance. In fearing him, humans are reminded of the limits of life and the consequences of choices. In myth and mysticism, his presence encourages moral vigilance. The stories teach that reckoning is inevitable, not malicious. By personifying consequence, Samael transforms abstract truths into something palpable, a figure whose appearance reminds us that justice is not optional, and life is not infinite. In this way, Samael is a teacher, albeit a stern and fearsome one. Even in modern interpretations, Samael survives as an archetype of necessary terror. From literature to art, from religious texts to cinematic adaptations, he represents the unavoidable truth: every action has consequences, every life an end, and every choice a cost. Unlike fallen angels who rebel, Samael remains steadfast in his purpose, highlighting a principle often forgotten in human imagination: fear can be constructive. When rightly understood, terror ensures accountability, order, and the delicate balance that sustains creation. Ultimately, the story of Samael forces reflection. He is the angel humanity fears most, not because he is evil, but because he is uncompromisingly true to his duty. His terror is not malevolence, it is the echo of the law, the inevitability of mortality, and the reflection of the poison humans carry within themselves. He reminds us that life is precious because it ends, that morality matters because it bears consequences, and that justice, cold, impartial, and inescapable, must exist for mercy to hold meaning. Samael is not the villain of this story, and that may be the most unsettling truth of all. He is the angel who never rebelled, never disobeyed, yet carries out the tasks no other being dares to accept. Death, poison, accusation, these are not acts of cruelty, but of consequence. Samael reminds us that every choice leaves a trace, every action demands an ending. Long after fear fades, he remains, waiting in silence. Thank you for watching this journey into sacred darkness. If you found meaning in the shadows, like, subscribe, and join us as we uncover more forbidden histories and forgotten angels.